The broadcast began as they always did. Dramatic music, spinning galactic logos, and the smug face of Emperor Zirith filling the star-studded frame. His eyes, a glimmering shade of violet, scanned the camera like he was peering through it into the soul of every creature watching across the stars. The flourish of his ceremonial robes, unnecessarily long and embroidered with the constellations of conquered systems, whispered vanity with every movement. "Citizens of the galaxy," Zirith intoned, his voice reverberating with digital augmentation. "We stand today at the dawn of a new era. An era of prosperity, unity, and responsible stewardship." He smiled, a calculated expression practiced in mirror halls for decades. "And to bring forth this golden future, the Galactic Empire has deemed it necessary to oversee the integration of Earth, a world tragically underutilized, into the collective structure." He paused, allowing the theater of it to land. "Their oceans, metals, and genetic curiosities will serve the greater good. And to our dear humans," he said, shifting tone to a patronizing warmth, "we offer peace, guidance, and protection in exchange for a modest surrender of sovereignty." Zirith pressed his clawed hands together in mock benevolence, the background shifting to a soft blue earth, rotating slowly. "You may submit willingly. Or," he continued, eyes narrowing, "we will take what we need." In the council chamber aboard the Imperial flagship, his advisors exchanged muted glances. High Chancellor Revnus, whose species resembled an elongated salamander, perpetually midway through molting, shifted uncomfortably. Beside him, the crystalline intelligence Caloran pulsed red in silent disagreement. And in the far corner, a levitating AI cube with one blinking optic emitted a sound suspiciously close to a sigh. "Majesty," Revnus ventured once the broadcast had ended, "this may not be prudent." Zirith turned slowly, the practiced smile evaporating. "Not prudent. There are rumors, whispers among the elder civilizations. About Earth. Unspoken warnings." Zirith scoffed. "You mean the myths? That humans are unpredictable? Chaotic? That they manage to survive extinction-level events while inventing double bacon cheeseburgers and something called reality TV?" "Yes, precisely that," the AI chimed in, sarcasm now fully operational. "The only species to build nuclear weapons before functional space travel. A bit like giving a toddler a chainsaw to open birthday presents." "They're isolated," Caloran added, his crystalline form rotating. "Primitive. But stubborn. They've refused integration for centuries." "And that ends now," Zirith snapped. "The council voted. Earth is ours." It hadn't been a unanimous vote, of course. Several council members had abstained, a few had outright vanished from their seats mid-session. And the representatives of the Varnari, the only species who once fought humans and survived, had simply said, "Good luck," and excused themselves from the entire galactic bloc. Still, an Imperial fleet had never failed to secure a target. Until now, there had been never try to take Earth law. Just superstition. Zirith wasn't a man of superstition. He was a man of empire. And he had already commissioned statues of himself for Earth's major cities. On Earth, the message arrived at exactly 9 a.m. Greenwich Mean Time. Chancellor Marcus Thorne, sipping from a chipped mug that read, #1grandpa, despite having no children, watched it in silence from the war room. He wore a plain suit, gray with a subtle pinstripe, and the expression of a man mildly inconvenienced by galactic conquest. Around him, aides and analysts murmured, glanced nervously at live feeds of the Imperial fleet assembling beyond Saturn. But Marcus sat perfectly still, one hand on his mug, the other slowly scrolling through a tablet filled with data. When the broadcast ended, no one spoke until he did. "Coffee's cold," he said absently. Then he looked up. "Patch me through." The transmission went out galaxy-wide, a far less ostentatious affair. No theme music. No planetary spin. Just a small conference room with terrible lighting, and an unassuming man in front of a flag. "This is Chancellor Marcus Thorne, representative of Earth," he began, calm and polite. "To the Galactic Empire, we acknowledge receipt of your message. In the spirit of interstellar diplomacy, we advise reconsideration." There was a pause. His tone didn't change, but something cold entered his eyes. There is only one rule out here that truly matters. A rule older than your empire. Older than any council. The rule is simple. Never try to take Earth. He offered a small, disarming smile. You'll find we have a poor tolerance for imperialism. And an excellent memory. He ended the message with a nod, and took a fresh sip of cold coffee. Across the galaxy, reactions ranged from laughter to stunned silence. That's it. Zirith barked, hurling a goblet across the chamber. That provincial whelp dares. Majesty, the AI interrupted gently. If I may, you did ask for a response. That was a response. Zirith snarled, turned, and issued the order. Prepare the fleet. We launch within the day. Meanwhile, in orbit around Mars, a far more subtle operation was underway. Admiral Lena Marlowe stood at the helm of Earth's unified defense fleet, aboard the EUS Resolute. Unlike most of the military brass, Lena wore no medals, just a dark tactical suit, a lopsided grin, and an expression that could make grown men forget what day it was. She reviewed holographic displays showing enemy fleet movement, warp gates forming, supply lines, weak points. With a flick, she expanded a secondary window, Marcus's broadcast, looping on silent. Tell me again what he said at the end? She asked. Her comms officer, a stocky woman with dyed green hair and a penchant for sour candy, replied without looking up. The bit about memory? No, Lena said, tapping her fingers. The bit about never try to take Earth. How'd he say it? The officer replayed the clip. Marcus's words echoed in the room. Never try to take Earth. Lena smiled. Not a warm one. The kind of smile reserved for bad news. He said it like a warning label, she said. Not a threat. A courtesy. Lena turned back to the fleet map. Time to honor his diplomacy. Let's prepare the welcoming committee. In a hidden hangar below the lunar surface, robotic arms loaded warheads labeled in cursive script. For the greater good. Satellites disguised as space debris began powering up. And below the oceans, dormant machines hummed to life. Back on the Imperial flagship, Zirith was busy practicing his victory speech. We liberated them, he tried aloud. No, we enlightened them? No. We corrected them. Revnus hesitated at the edge of the room. Sire, perhaps, just perhaps, we should delay until we better understand the enemy. Zirith turned, robes swirling dramatically. Understand? What is there to understand? They're emotional bipeds with a penchant for petty conflict and an unhealthy attachment to fried foods. Revnus fidgeted. And yet, they persist. Thrive. Some would say, outmaneuver. Zirith waved a hand. We are the galaxy's stewards. We do not get outmaneuvered by primates. Far above Earth, probes hidden in asteroid fields recorded the movement of every Imperial ship. Deep beneath Antarctica, an ancient vault unlocked, revealing weapons banned by Earth's own nations, now dusted off like forgotten chess pieces. Lena watched the clock. 72 hours until they arrive, she murmured. Let's make them think we're still debating. Across human-controlled space, defense fleets scattered, vanished. Warp signals disappeared. The Empire saw this and laughed. Typical humans, Zirith muttered. Disorganized. Cowardly. Already scattering. But Earth wasn't scattering. It was circling. Preparing. Marcus sat alone in his office, staring at a photo of Earth from orbit, the continents outlined by city lights. A soft knock broke the silence. Chancellor, his aide said, peeking in. The council's still pressing for a retreat. He didn't answer immediately. Just sipped from his mug. They'll learn, he said finally. We tried to be polite. In the stars, the Empire advanced, confident, arrogant, utterly unaware of the ancient truth echoing once more across the galaxy. Never try to take Earth. The Imperial fleet arrived on the edges of the Sol system, like a thundercloud edged in arrogance. Hundreds of capital ships, cruisers, and fighter wings emerged from warp tunnels in a dazzling bloom of blue and gold light. It was a sight designed to inspire awe and fear, a celestial parade of conquest. Emperor Zirith watched from the observation deck of his flagship, the Radiant Verdict. His arms were folded behind his back, posture impeccable, an expression fixed in satisfied disdain. The human system looked unimpressive, he decided. There was nothing special about this pale star, and its scattering of rocky worlds. Earth didn't even boast the kind of planetary defenses that would normally merit concern. No resistance, reported a Zarthan navigator, his bioluminescent face flickering with data. Earth's orbital traffic appears normal. Civilian. No power surges. No fleet signals. Zirith smirked, his reflection cast across the glass. They flee before we've even arrived. Another officer stepped forward, armored in ceremonial scale plates that jingled faintly. Your Excellency, some of the scout ships have gone dark. Intermittent communication failures. Old technology, Zirith replied dismissively. Their infrastructure is probably collapsing under the pressure of our arrival. In truth, the silence unnerved several of the bridge crew, especially the more seasoned among them. There was no sign of resistance, but there was also no sign of panic. Earth's surface was normal. That, above all, was abnormal. Still, Zirith would not be denied his theater. He stepped forward, signaling for a fleet-wide broadcast. His voice echoed across thousands of ships, and with it, across the surface of Earth. To the people of Earth, he began, each syllable dripping with the pretense of civility. The Galactic Empire has arrived to assume custodianship of your world. Lay down your arms. Abandon resistance. Submit peacefully, and you may retain a measure of autonomy under our wise and enduring guidance. He paused, waiting for the answer. There was none. Typical, he muttered. On Earth, Chancellor Marcus Thorne set down his mug. It now read, World's okayest politician. A gift from a particularly sarcastic admiral. He stood alone in the war room, surrounded by screens showing the exact position of every Imperial ship. His team had been evacuated days ago. Only the old oak desk and a single comm console remained. He pressed a button. On the bridge of the Radiant Verdict, Ziritha's display flickered to life. Marcus appeared, seated in his chair with the relaxed posture of a man in no particular rush. Hello again, he said, with a pleasant nod. Welcome to the solar system. Zirith leaned closer, sneering. Your silence is foolish, Chancellor. You have one final chance to. Marcus interrupted him. You're in range. Thanks. Then the screen went black. At that precise moment, Earth's response began. From the orbit of Neptune, a ring of dormant satellites came online. They had been disguised as space debris for decades, scattered like breadcrumbs across the edges of the system. They pulsed once, synchronizing, and then vanished from view. Not cloaked, just gone, folding into micro-warp envelopes only humans could manipulate safely. The Imperial fleet's sensors hiccuped. Then, chaos. Earth's attack didn't begin with weapons, not immediately. It started with disruption. Comm relays failed. Navigation systems glitched. Targeting software rewrote itself, lines of malicious code worming through firewalls like gossip through a high school. One Imperial ship opened fire on another, its targeting system displaying false flags. Then another. Then 10 more. Friendly fire on Vector 6. Someone shouted. We've been hacked. Zirith spun to his comms officer. Shut it down. Regain control. I can't, sire. They're in our systems. Everywhere. Then the real attack began. Admiral Lena Marlowe arrived without fanfare, just sudden, total presence. Her fleet, hidden in the shadows of Jupiter's moons and deep space cloaking fields, emerged like ghosts. Earth's vessels didn't match the size of Imperial ships, but they didn't need to. They moved like thoughts, fast, unpredictable, surgical. The Resolute surged ahead, flanked by fighters and gunships so heavily modified, they no longer resembled their schematics. Earth's technology wasn't elegant, but it was devastating. Railguns mounted on retrofitted mining vessels tore through shielding with terrifying efficiency. Nano-guided torpedoes slipped between capital ship hulls like whispers through a cathedral. Lena stood at the center of the bridge, boots planted apart, expression unreadable. "Target their command vessels first," she said. "Take out their officers. Leave their grunts to run home and tell the story." "Yes, ma'am." The human fleet moved in silence. No dramatic comm chatter, no pre-battle monologues. Just brutal, efficient action. On the radiant verdict, alarms screamed. The starboard defense array exploded outward as a railgun slug the size of a shipping container tore through its spine. "How are they inside our formation?" Zirith bellowed, gripping the rail. "Teleportation? No, warp signature suggests they were hiding behind moons." "Then why didn't we see them?" The AI cube from the council flickered to life, calmly analyzing the chaos. "They didn't hide, Emperor. You simply weren't looking in the right places. They knew exactly how you'd approach. They knew when you'd arrive. This isn't a defense." It rotated slowly, optic glowing red. "It's a trap." Zirith watched as half his fleet was cut apart in minutes. Ships collided, drifting helplessly after their guidance systems failed. One cruiser fell into Saturn's rings, shredded into molten ribbons. He opened a channel. "To all ships, retreat. Regroup. Flee if you must. We will recalibrate and return." He cut the feed and turned to the AI. "What do we do?" The AI paused. "We pray they let us." Down on Earth, Marcus received the status report on a flickering display. He read it twice. Smiled once. "Lena's right on time." In orbit, the human fleet had stopped. The Imperial ships that hadn't been destroyed now floated helplessly, their weapons disabled, their leaders gone. Earth didn't chase them. Didn't finish them. They watched. Admiral Lena opened a channel. "To all remaining Imperial vessels. You've been defeated. You may leave if you wish. We've proven our point." There was a pause. Then static. Then a single alien voice, trembling, came through. "What are you?" Lena chuckled, a quiet, mirthless sound. "We're just humans," she replied. "Smiling monkeys with a knack for planning funerals. Yours, mostly." Back aboard the radiant verdict, Zirith sat hunched in his throne, the arrogance drained from his face. His ceremonial robes were scorched in places, the gold now dulled by smoke and panic. He whispered, more to himself than anyone. "This was supposed to be easy." The AI cube hovered in the smoke. "You made a mistake, Emperor. A simple one." Ziritha's eyes flicked up, rage rekindling. "Do enlighten me. You believed power came from size. From numbers. From declarations. But humans—" The AI paused, as if searching for the right phrase. "Humans are different." Zirith sneered. "They're animals." "Precisely. Apex ones." Elsewhere, across the galaxy, races watched the battle feed. Some in amusement. Some in awe. Most in fear. A civilization once mocked for its food delivery apps and amateur drone footage had just dismantled the Galactic Empire's second fleet, without breaking a sweat. In a smoky bar on Denkara 4, a Trinari mercenary flicked off the broadcast and took a long drink. "Told you," he muttered to no one in particular. "Never mess with Earth." In the shadows of a forgotten nebula, an ancient species stirred. One that had warred with humans long ago and survived only by hiding. They watched the footage of Lena's fleet cutting through Imperial ranks and muttered old, forbidden words. They've remembered who they are. Back on Earth, Marcus walked the edge of the observation deck as blue skies stretched over quiet cities. Despite the war in orbit, the surface remained untouched. That was the point. To Earth's population, the invasion was little more than a news update. A background hum. War had not reached their door. Not because the Empire hadn't tried, but because Earth hadn't allowed it. He turned as Lena's face appeared on the comm screen, smudged with smoke and lit by flickering tactical lights. "We're holding position," she said. "They're running. Broadcasting distress. Probably regrouping near Proxima." "Let them," Marcus replied. "We're not chasing." Lena raised a brow. "You're sure?" Marcus looked out at the sky, distant clouds lazily drifting. "Yes. They still think this is about territory. We haven't shown them the real reason yet. She gave a nod. Understood. The channel closed. Marcus lingered, then finally spoke aloud, to no one in particular. They think they've made a mistake invading Earth. He tapped the glass, watching the stars. They haven't even made the real mistake yet. Far beyond the Sol system, the remaining Imperial ships limped toward a rendezvous point. An emergency session of the Galactic Council was called. Species from across the spiral arm debated what to do. Some wanted peace. Some wanted vengeance. But a few, the oldest and wisest, simply whispered the new name echoing through deep space. Earth. The apex world. The last mistake they would ever make. And the humans? They were smiling. Always smiling. Because the real game hadn't even started. The remnants of the Imperial fleet drifted like scorched feathers through the stars, trailing sparks and fragmented pride. Systems once tightly controlled now hung together with temporary protocols and frayed discipline. Across what remained of the Armada, tension mounted like heat beneath armor, sharp, sticky, and waiting for a crack. Above the gassed giant Velmora, at a secret rally point, ships limped into formation. Repairs were underway, comms reconnected, and wounded officers were dragged from twisted corridors still smelling of scorched metal. What was once the Second Conquest Fleet had been reduced to a bruised cluster of survivors nursing their egos and wondering what hit them. Emperor Zirith sat hollow-eyed in a command throne stripped of grandeur. He wore no robes now, just an armored tunic and the sweat of failure. His usual entourage stood at a wary distance, as though betrayal might leak from him like radiation. His voice, once operatic in authority, had shriveled to something leaner, sharp as a dagger and twice as cold. They'll expect us to retreat. To recover. That's what they're counting on, he said without turning. We don't give them that satisfaction. The AI cube hovered nearby, no longer flickering with humor or sarcasm, but something worse, calculation. You speak of vengeance, it said. But they did not fight for dominance. They were not defending land. They were executing a plan. Ziritha's lip curled. You believe they anticipated our every move? The AI rotated slowly. I believe they lured you. From the moment your first scout arrived in their orbit, they were preparing the board. They didn't win that battle, Emperor. You walked into a house they built to collapse on your head. We are not done, Zirith muttered. I will not let that be our legacy. The AI paused, as if processing something outside of conversation. Then you should know, reinforcements have arrived. Zirith looked up, eyes rekindling. From beyond the Velmoran halo, the Third Fleet emerged. Fresh ships, undamaged hulls, formations precise and proud. They were commanded by High Admiral Calrex, a battle-hardened tactician from the Outer Rims. Her species, tall, feline and telepathic, had once brought an entire rebellion to its knees using silence and sleep. She was not fond of Zirith. Her image appeared on the command display, arms crossed, gold eyes unreadable. I see you've softened them up for us, she said dryly. Zirith did not rise to the bait. We were ambushed. They're deceptive, dangerous. You must not underestimate them. I've read your logs, she replied. You treated them like prey. Perhaps you forgot how apex predators work. I didn't come here to be lectured, he snapped. No, Calrex said. You came to win a war. So let's get to it. The fleets began to align. Earth's last known position, the Sol system. Recon ships suggested they had not moved. A sign, perhaps, of overconfidence. But they had moved. Just not in any direction the Empire was looking. In the asteroid belt between Earth and Jupiter, Earth's second wave was waiting, silent, cold, and coiled. Admiral Lena Marlowe stood in the Resolute's command center, arms behind her back, gaze locked on a holomap showing the movement of incoming Imperial reinforcements. She watched like a chess master studying a board 10 moves deep. A technician approached. The Third Fleets entered the system. Looks like they're taking the bait. Lena's lips quirked. They always do. That's the problem with arrogance. It makes people predictable. They're moving toward Earth's orbit, the tech continued. Our forces are still cloaked within the belt. And they'll stay that way until I say otherwise. Lena stepped forward. Patch me through to Marcus. Moments later, Chancellor Thorne's face flickered onto the screen. His usual mug was replaced by a glass of something dark and amber, half empty. They're biting, she said without preamble. Marcus nodded. It's time then. Let's spring the next surprise. Any last words of warning for them? He thought for a moment. They wouldn't listen. Lena nodded once and cut the feed. Earth's fleet, hidden among rocks and shadows, began to move. A slow unfurling of wings, each vessel a knife drawn in silence. They had been idle for weeks, their systems hibernating to avoid detection. Now they ignited, swift, synchronized and surgical. The trap was not merely location or weaponry. It was psychology. The Empire believed Earth would defend itself. Earth had never been defending. They were teaching. As Calrex's fleet approached Earth's orbit, she received her first sign that something was wrong. The outermost frigates lost contact. Not due to weapon strikes, but a total sensory blackout. No visuals. No radar. No warp echoes. Just silence. A minute later, a voice crackled through her command channel. It wasn't panicked. It wasn't angry. It was amused. Admiral Lena Marlowe's voice, calm as ice water. Hi there. Just checking in. You've entered restricted airspace. Calrex's hackles raised instinctively. Identify yourself. Oh, you know who I am, Lena said. But more importantly, I know who you are. Hi, Admiral Calrex. Ruthless. Efficient. Smart. Smarter than Zirith, which I'm told is not difficult. Calrex frowned. I assume this is the part where you issue a threat? No, Lena said. This is the part where I give you one last chance to walk away. Because once we close the door, it doesn't open again. Calrex signaled to cut the channel. All ships, prepare for counter-engagement. We are likely surrounded. She was right. Moments later, the asteroid field exploded into motion. Earth's ships surged forth, not in random chaos, but in a deliberate net. They moved through the Third Fleet with precision honed in silence, slipping between ship formations, disabling engines before shields even activated. A dozen Imperial cruisers tried to fire, only to realize their targeting systems had been corrupted before they entered the system. One commander's last image before losing control was a human meme, something about a dog surrounded by fire, saying, "This is fine." It was not fine. Calrex's flagship shook violently as a pair of Earth stealth bombers released subspace destabilizers, causing her outer hull to ripple like boiling glass. She gritted her teeth and barked orders, adjusting tactics, regrouping with impressive speed. Lena noticed. She's sharp, Lena said, watching from the Resolute. Good. It's been a while since I had to try. Earth's ships didn't rely on brute force. They struck surgically, communications nodes, command bridges, shield regulators. Every Imperial ship hit was crippled, not destroyed. It wasn't just war. It was a message. Lena opened a wideband channel. To all Imperial units, this is your last out. Shut down your weapons and retreat, and we'll let you limp home. She paused, then added, refuse, and we'll make sure you go home in boxes you can't open. Silence. Then one Imperial vessel powered down. Then another. Calrex roared in frustration. Cowards! Hold the line. But the line was gone. Her fleet was surrounded by something they didn't understand. Not just technology, but purpose. They had entered expecting a fight. They had walked into a demonstration. Marcus watched the live feed from Earth. He had moved to a secure facility, hidden beneath a mountain in Greenland. No ceremonial offices now, just hard metal, command terminals and strategic oversight. He sipped his drink and gestured for the data stream to pause. One of his aides, young, nervous, brilliant, hesitated before speaking. Sir, you knew this would happen. All of it. Marcus looked at him. Yes. You set this up from the start? He nodded again. But why let them come at all? Why not just stop them at the border? Marcus smiled faintly. Because then they would fear us. This way, they understand us. Outside, the stars burned on. The battle above the belt raged for another 6 minutes. Then it was over. Of the Third Fleet, only a third escaped. The rest were adrift or disabled. Cal Rex herself was captured, pulled from the wreckage of her ship with a shattered leg and a bruised ego. She looked at Lena as she was led aboard the Resolute, blood trickling from her brow. "You won't win this forever," she said. Lena raised an eyebrow. "We don't need forever. Just long enough. Long enough to change the rules." The survivors were allowed to leave. Earth's fleet remained in formation, hovering just beyond the orbital edge like sharks deciding whether to circle again. They did not pursue. They did not broadcast their victory. They didn't have to. The galaxy was watching. On worlds across the galactic core, in outposts near dying stars, and on trade hubs orbiting black holes, word spread. Not just of Earth's power, but of its restraint. That was the part that terrified people. Not what the humans did. What they chose not to. On Earth, Chancellor Marcus Thorne stood before a secure line, speaking to someone only he knew existed. His words were quiet, but firm. "They've taken the bait. The Council will panic. They'll try to retaliate. Good. That's when we finish it." There was no reply. Just a soft beep as the line ended. Marcus turned, folding his hands behind his back. "Prepare the storming protocols," he said. "It's time we reclaimed the chamber." And the stars blinked on, unaware they were about to change forever. The Galactic Council chamber had always been a place of pomp and polished theater, a sanctum of ritual and ego where decisions masqueraded as wisdom. Built on the neutral world of Elysia Prime, it hovered above a crystalline lake, held aloft by an anti-gravity cradle powered by ancient tech no one truly understood anymore. Delegates from every corner of the galaxy filled the Grand Crescent, their seats arranged by species longevity, not political influence, an odd compromise that meant the wisest often sat in silence while the loudest held the floor. Now it was unusually quiet. The murmur of cautious diplomacy had shifted to something sharper, fear. Whispers traveled faster than light, and the events at Sol had hit like a gravity bomb. The destruction of the Second Fleet had been a bruise. The annihilation of the Third? That was a broken spine. And Earth hadn't even flinched. Emperor Zirith stood at the center of the chamber, no longer draped in velvet proclamations, but clad in ceremonial armor that felt more like a disguise than a defense. His expression was hollow pride nailed over a framework of desperation. Delegates avoided his eyes. Some glared with unspoken accusations. A few had already moved to revoke his wartime powers, but protocol demanded civility, even at the edge of collapse. "They're a rogue species," Zirith barked, hands gripping the edges of the central podium. "They refuse unity. They disrespect law. And now they humiliate our fleets, our people, this council." A gelatinous delegate from the Torkothi Collective blorped nervously. "And yet they spared the survivors." Zirith didn't blink. "They're predators. Predators love games." A slow sigh hissed from the other side of the chamber, where the representative of the Sithari Confederation, a race of blind philosophers with wings like folded silk, leaned forward. "Perhaps," said Councillor Veth. "They simply believe in mercy where we showed none." "They're primitives," Zirith snapped. "They're Earth." "And that, Your Excellency," Veth replied, "is beginning to mean something very different than it did a month ago." The silence after that was the kind that only came before upheaval. Then the chamber doors exploded inward. It wasn't debris or fire, it was precision. A ripple of controlled force that folded the reinforced archways inward like they had never mattered. Stun fields pulsed out instantly, disabling security mechs and scrambling shield protocols across the chamber. Delegates stood, some diving behind protective spheres, others frozen in shock. Through the breach marched a squad of soldiers in matte black armor, each step timed, each gesture rehearsed. At their center, unarmed and unhurried, walked Admiral Lena Marlowe. Her hair was pulled back in a severe knot. Her uniform bore no medals. Her eyes scanned the chamber like a scientist studying a specimen. Cool, curious, distant. Behind her, Another figure entered. Tall, calm, composed. Chancellor Marcus Thorne, hands folded neatly behind his back, dressed in the same modest suit he'd worn in every broadcast. There was no visible weapon. Only his voice, and that was always enough. "You have violated interstellar law," Zirith roared, stepping forward as if indignation could stop them. "This is a sovereign chamber." "This is a relic," Marcus said quietly, walking past him without a glance. "A theater for cowards who mistook tradition for progress." Zirith moved to speak again, but Lena stepped between them. "I wouldn't," she said softly. "You're not in command here anymore." Delegates looked between each other, uncertain whether to run or bow. No one moved. Marcus stepped into the center of the chamber, directly onto the council's crest. He turned slowly, letting the silence build. "For centuries," he began, "this council has served as the moral spine of the galaxy. A beacon. A court. A conscience." A few nodded. Others stared. "And for centuries, that conscience has been compromised. Sold. Weaponized. Made to kneel before power while speaking the language of peace." He paused, voice still calm, tone gaining steel. "You spoke of unity while drawing borders. Of law while selling war. Of protection, while treating new species like resources." Zirith snarled. "And you think Earth will do better?" "No," Marcus said simply. "I know we will." He lifted a small device from his pocket and activated a projection. Footage filled the chamber, Imperial fleets firing first, civilians threatened, human ships disabling targets without killing. It wasn't just war footage. It was a morality play. Evidence. You invaded a world that asked for nothing. You threatened peace in the name of order. You declared war without understanding who you were fighting. Delegates shifted uncomfortably. "Do you think we were lucky?" Marcus asked. "That we guessed right? That we just happened to win?" He smiled then, and something in the room went colder. "We've been preparing for this moment since your first probe entered our orbit. Since your first diplomat offered us deals wrapped in gold and leashes. Earth remembers every attempt to control it. And we have never, not once in our history, been truly conquered." Zirith stepped forward, rage boiling over. "You mean to seize the council?" "No," Marcus replied. "We're liberating it." He gestured, and a column of soldiers brought in several of Zirith's senior officials, now in restraints, those who had pushed for invasion, who had bribed votes, who had built empires on the backs of subjugated systems. Their capture was not violent. It had been efficient, swift, and silent. Just like everything else Earth had done. Lena turned to the gathered representatives. "You will form a new council," she said. "One based not on age or lineage, but on principle. Membership requires 3 vows." Her voice rang through the chamber like a blade drawn in ceremony. 1. Protect the peace, not the profit. 2. Defend the weak, not the powerful. And 3. She glanced toward Marcus, who spoke the final line with quiet finality. "Never try to take Earth." There was a long pause. Then, slowly, Veth of the Cythery stood, wings unfolding. "I accept these terms." Others followed. Not all. But enough. Zirith screamed and lunged, drawing a blade concealed in his gauntlet. It wasn't meant to win. It was a gesture of pride, of final defiance. It was also foolish. Lena sidestepped, disarmed him with a motion too fast to track, and pressed him to the floor with the weight of a hand and a legacy far greater than his. "I'm not killing you," she said, not without pity. "I want you to live. To see what a better galaxy looks like." Zirith hissed something in a language long extinct, but no one was listening. Marcus looked around the chamber one last time, then turned and began walking away. "Where are you going?" One delegate called out. He stopped at the doorway, smiling gently. "Home." Outside, the skies of Elysia Prime burned gold with twilight. Earth's fleet hovered in orbit, not as conquerors but as wardens. Already, broadcasts were being sent to every corner of the galaxy, not in triumph, but in invitation. "Join us," they said. "Not to rule. To protect." In the days that followed, something remarkable happened. Systems long ignored by the Council began to speak. Old allies once silent raised their voices. Former enemies requested dialogue. The very idea of power began to shift, not through dominance, but demonstration. Back on Earth, Marcus stood atop the UN spire in New Geneva, looking out over a peaceful city under a blue sky. Lena joined him, hands in her pockets, wind tugging at her jacket. "You ever think we overdid it?" she asked. Marcus shrugged. "We didn't destroy them. We just reminded them who we are." She gave him a sidelong glance. "And who is that, exactly?" His answer came slowly, but without doubt. "Humans. Polite. Patient. Efficient." He looked up at the stars. And when provoked, unforgettable. Across the galaxy, statues were quietly removed. Flags were changed. Songs rewritten. But in back rooms and whispers, one phrase endured. Never try to take Earth. Not because Earth would fight, but because it had already won.